I probably should have called her,
I totally believe that.
but it's blessed. For those of you who may not know, today is the day of Our Lady of Charity. And I'm in the middle of a construction thing, so I have things everywhere, and I happen to have the statue right here. So it all seems a little bit serendipitous. I'm going to show the statue because my mother gave it to me, and it was in a closet, and now I feel like it shouldn't be in a closet anymore. So this is La Caridad de Cobre. It's hard to say. Here we go. Right. So not exactly my jam, but I don't know. I felt the spirit, and today's the day, so I think that that's like a message. So all this to say, I'm really happy to be here with you today, and I'm really feel a lot of love for y'all, and I really just am thrilled I'll be able to hear your work and enjoy you as an audience member and not just my friend. So because I'm very much a fan of all of you. So much love tonight. I know you're gonna kill it. Such a violent term. Maybe I shouldn't say that. You're gonna be amazing. You're gonna sparkle it. That's because you're right next to me, Dustin. Sparkles.
I'm super excited to be here with y'all too. I just wanted to echo that, and I'm really filled with joy in this moment.
You know.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're on. And welcome to Escribe Aquí. I'm gonna turn it over to Nicole Tallman.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Caridad. It's an honor to be here with you all. And we're celebrating a lot of things tonight, poetry and community. And Escribe Aquí, for those who do not speak Spanish, is right here. Right is W-R-I-T, not R-I-G-H-T. I think that one of the uniting points of this entire festival is celebrating arts. But one of the things that we're also celebrating tonight with this particular group, I think, is otherness, right? Which is one of the themes, as well as some LGBTQ issues. We know we live in Florida, where it can be a challenging time to be ourselves and to write in that space. So I'm very grateful to the Betsy, to Deb, especially Deborah Briggs, who's here with us, and all of our partners for allowing us this space to be able to speak our voices and our truths and to be ourselves. And as the poetry ambassador for Miami-Dade County, I think one of my greatest honors is to be able to work with such a tremendously creative and vibrant literary community here in Miami. I know a lot of people might not know this about Miami if you're watching from other places, but we have such a great literary arts community. Organizations like the Book Fair and Oh Miami and Books and Books, and it's just a beautiful community to be able to live and write in. I don't want to take too much of a downturn here, but I do have to say that we recently lost one of the members of our community, a very good friend of many of ours, Maureen Seaton. I know that Caridad's going to talk a little bit more about this later in this reading, but before I introduce my amazing friend and co-host for the evening of this beautiful literary salon with all of these beautiful people we've gathered here, I just want to read one of Maureen's poems for you all. She wrote a book called The Sky is the Elephant, and it came out in July of this year, and she just passed away, in August. And this is her very last book as a solo book. I had the honor of being the editor and publishing this book. And I tell you what a gift it was that we were able to work on this together. So I'm going to read the titular poem very quickly, called The Sky is an Elephant. And then I'm going to turn it over to our beautiful group here. So this is for you, Maureen, wherever you are. The sky is an elephant, And that's a Jack Spicer from The Ballad of the Little Girl Who Invented the Universe after Lorca. Once I was the little girl who invented the universe. I was sad as a chimney without a house. I didn't mean this to be a poem, but it's building itself, and there is nothing I can do to stop it. Truly, try and stop me. I am sad as a house without a doll. See, a doll without a mouth without a smile. Note to poet, revise that last part, too glum. Here's a line from Spicer, or maybe Lorca. They often share. But the sky is an elephant, and the jasmines are water without blood. This is sad, but it makes me happy, especially the elephant. I think this poem actually ended somewhere around the doll or the mouth, but I am too sad to fix it. You know how that feels. So this make-believe poem will go on as it is, like the moon over the skeleton of a girl. Such a beautiful poem. I'm gonna turn it over to Caridad. I'm just gonna read her bio because if you are not familiar with how amazing she is, I just want everyone to know how amazing she is. Okay, so Caridad Moro-Gronlier is a community-driven South Florida poet and the author of Tortillera poems from Texas Review Press 2021, winner of the TRP Southern Florida Breakthrough Prize, a 2022 International Latino Book Award Honorable Mention, a 2020 Eric Hoffer Book Award Honorable Mention, and a 2022 First Horizon Award finalist. And she is also the author of Visionware, published by Finishing Line Press in 2009 as part of its New Women Voices series. She is the series editor of From the Writer's Room, Miami Nootropic, editor of Grabbed, Poets and Writers Respond to Sexual Assault, Empowerment and Healing from Beacon Press 2020, and the associate editor for Swim Every Day, an online daily poetry journal for women identifying poets, and its accompanying Swim reading series. And I want us all to give a big round of applause for my wonderful, beautiful friend, Caridad.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you. You make a girl blush. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to be here with all of you tonight. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd really like to thank Jean Font and Collaborative, our production partner in this, and our other two Escribe Aquí closing events. And I'd also like to thank our community partners for so graciously helping us build an audience for these events. A heartfelt thanks as well to Deborah Briggs and Jonathan Plutzik for so generously supporting the arts in Miami and for providing the refuge of the Writer's Room at the Betsy Hotel, now celebrating its 10th anniversary, if you can believe it. It's hard to believe. The Escribe Aquí Festival grew out of that Writer's Room. Over 1,000 writers now, a group as distinguished as it is vast. So choosing this year's cohort was no easy task. In the end, I curated it with the idea of otherness in mind, with the idea of intersectionality, with writers who I saw as existing as living Venn diagrams, writers whose lives and art exist independently, but also intersect and overlap in the glorious middle of their lived experience, a middle that provides the soft landing of connection. These writers take their otherness and build a bedrock of empathy through their work. And I say this with conviction and honesty because I had the great privilege of connecting with each one of them and was made the better for every interaction. Before I introduce our first amazing reader, I want to touch on Maureen Seaton and dedicate tonight's readings to her. She's one of my dearest mentors and the mentor to so many here tonight. As it so happens, Nicole and Dustin and I were together when we heard the news of Maureen's passing. And that was a strange serendipity because our connection and our friendship made it easier to bear. And we did what Maureen would have wanted us to do, what she would have done with us. Actually, she did do it with us. We wrote a poem. And now I'm going to read one of her own, one of my favorites, Save Yourself for Better Times, Virgil, Aeneid. I will not save myself for better times. I will use myself up now, and then I will use myself up again tomorrow. It's why my eyes stay open all night and my heart throws itself to the stars to see which ones decide to stand still and grow a constellation around me. Thank you, Maureen. Now it is my pleasure to introduce my friend, my brother, Dustin Brookshire. He is the author of the chapbooks Never Picked First for Playtime, Harbor Editions 2023, Love Most of You Too, Harbor Editions 2021, and To the One Who Raped Me, Sibling Rivalry Press 2012. His work has been read on NPR and other radio stations, featured in Georgia Poetry in Parks, and earned Pushcart and Best of Net nominations. He's the co-editor of Let Me Say This, a Dolly Parton poetry anthology. And Dolly's there with him tonight, by the way, y'all. Madville Publishing 2023, co-editor of a forthcoming Forms anthology from Harbor Anthologies, and editor of a forthcoming chapbook anthology from Harbor Editions. Visit him online at dustinbrookshire.com to learn more about Wild and Precious Life series and Librist. Now, with no further ado, Dustin.
Thank you so much. I want to extend my gratitude to the staff at the Betsy Hotel for their attentive care that they show all guests that I experienced during my residency, to Deborah for all the work that you do to ensure the Writers' Room is a resource for the arts community, to Caridad for the curation of the Escribe Aquí program, and to the Plutzik family and all the partners for making the residency events possible. And of course, thank you to Jean, not just because you said I look good tonight, but for all of your technical support that you're providing. Thank you so much. And Arsimer, Tyler, Melissa, and Judy, I look forward to hearing your reading. I want to say something about Maureen. Maureen was kind. Maureen was generous. And she was so, so much more. If you knew her, you already knew this. If you didn't know her, you've probably already seen it on social media through all of the tributes that people have been sharing over the last couple of weeks. Anybody that knows me knows that I'm always cooking up some poetry project. Some of them work, a lot of them bomb, and thank you to all of you who don't call me out when they bomb, but I try in the end. And Maureen was a person who was always supportive of all those projects. If I emailed her, she was always in with an immediate yes. And I just hope that I communicated enough of my appreciation to her for that kindness while she was here. I first met Maureen when I was 19 or 20. She featured at Java Monkey in Decatur, which is right outside Atlanta. I was enthralled. She's the first rock star poet that I had met. And I did an open mic, and she said, "That was a hell of a poem, kid. Keep writing." I can't tell you how many times I called on her encouragement throughout the years as I began to write when I was a baby poet, how much those words meant to me. So my ask and my challenge to all of you watching tonight is to simply encourage others, writers, non-writers, whatever it is, give a word of encouragement, because you may never know the impact that you're going to have on someone's life with those words. I am going to do something I never do, which is I'm going to read an unfinished poem that I started writing at the Betsy for Maureen, and it does not have a title yet. Today, I stood in the Atlantic Ocean for the last time as a Floridian, watching the waves wash over my silver toenails. I'm thinking of you. The last time we spoke, you said your body is in Denver, but your heart is always in Miami. I am here in Miami. I was riding in the lobby of the Betsy when I heard that you passed. Grief sutured itself to my chest. It's been years since someone I loved died. I've forgotten how grief aches in the body, how it lingers no matter what you command. I command my mind to think of anything other than death. If only the mind worked in such a linear way. Hopefully I'll be able to finish that. Again, continuing my Maureen tribute, I have a poem that was written. I mentioned that she was at Dog Monkey reading from Furious Cooking, which is also a poem. The book is of the same title. And I have a poem that was published in my second chapbook, Love Most of You Too, called Furious Cleaning, after Maureen Seaton's Furious Cooking. It's the kind of cleaning that begins with spitting, yelling, and cursing because you can't believe you let it get so damn bad. You inventory the papers, clothes, random plates, and the lilies he bought to make you smile. Label everything, his or mine. His is destined for the garbage bag you open with a fast swoop. Air doesn't even fill the bag before you sling the first item inside, looking for the next version of him, while eyeing those fucking lilies. It's the kind of cleaning that makes you sweat like you're working in the yard, the kind that makes you stop to catch your breath, the kind that's cathartic like a Sexton poem, serves retribution like a Dante punishment, cleanses like bleach on the floor. I remember my mother standing at the sink, staring into her task of diluting bleach, then on hands and knees, scrubbing an already spotless floor. Tears fell from her eyes as she dipped sponge in water, mumbled, "The bathroom is next," all while cursing my father's name, cleaning every spot named Christina. So I'm going to invite Caridad to join me. Nicole talked about Sky is an Elephant, Maureen's last book, and Nicole and Maureen have a poem in that book called Nicole Wants to Write a Poem with Maureen. And I'm the biggest damn copycat in the world. If you do a good idea, I'm going to mimic the shit out of that because that's how I roll. I just love to pay tribute to good ideas. And so I thought, you know what? I want to do some collaborations with people. And so Caridad and I are going to read you. Dustin wants to write a poem with Caridad, and it's inspired by Nicole who wants to write a poem with Maureen. Dustin is writing this poem without his secret weapon, Kirkland brand Pinot Grigio from Costco. Dustin is writing this poem hungry since he's on another diet, but he swears he won't get hangry. Dustin wants to know what Caridad is having for dinner.
Caridad means to tell Dustin she's having grilled chicken and spring mix for dinner, but it comes out as spring chicken and grilled mix. Caridad laughs at the gaffe because it sums up her youth when all she ate was grilled chicken and spring mix, in public, that is. Caridad sighs with resignation when she says, "I got fat anyway."
When Dustin hears Reed thinks the word fat, he thinks of sort of lives. How Bonnie Bedela's character Latrell removed the husky label from her son's jeans, sewed on a slim label in its place. Dustin's mother used to ask him, "Do you want to be fat like your father's mother?" Then add, "Don't tell your father I said that."
"Don't tell your father," is what Caridad's mother says when they slip into the Orange Julius at the mall for a midday pick-me-up, teeming with all the sugar he doesn't allow either of them to have. Caridad's father monitors her mother's weight and dress size, which is why her mother bursts into tears when the maroon size 8 slim hip polyester bell bottoms she's been eyeing don't fit her size 10 well-hipped body. "Don't tell your father," she says later at home as Caridad watches her remove a size 8 tag from a Papi-approved pair of pants and replace the size 10 tag on the new pair she brought home with it. It is painstaking work that requires tiny snips, a practice stitch, a lie ever ready on the lips. Caridad never tells.
Let's give a round of applause for my partner Caridad on that one.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Justin.
Of course, thank you for writing with me. I am also going to now ask Nicole to come on with me because how could I be writing these inspired poems if I didn't do one with Nicole? So Dustin wants to write a poem with Nicole. Dustin tells Nicole he thought of her the other day when a coworker said, "There's Florida and there's Miami. They are very different places." Dustin thought about the Nashville Dolly Parton Day event when Nicole said something similar. Dustin wants Nicole to tell him what's so damn special about Miami.
Nicole tells Dustin she thought of him when she saw a billboard of Dolly on the roof of the Velvet Taco. It wasn't just Dolly, but also the importance of kindness that made her think of him. Nicole thinks Dustin is one of the kindest people she knows. Nicole wants to tell Dustin what's so damn special about Miami, but she's still trying to figure that out herself.
Dustin's instinct is to argue against the compliment. That's life with a narcissistic parent. He begrudgingly writes thank you. He considers himself kind, but never nice. He hates when people call him nice. He's really fucking nosy. Thank Gladys Kravitz on speed. Takes pride in being a smartass and recycling drag race shade whenever possible. Oh, a few of the many reasons he can never live a WWDD dedicated life. What would Dolly do? Duh.
Nicole's instinct is to challenge Dustin's idea of what it means to be nice. She considers kind and nice to be synonyms and thinks nice has gotten a bad rap because it's sexier to be mean than nice. She loves when people call her kind or nice and thinks both are the highest compliment. Nicole, however, also has a hard time accepting compliments, but doesn't really want to talk about her parents today.
Dustin loves a challenge, gladly accepts Nicole's non-challenge challenge. He throws the gloves he isn't wearing to the ground. It's Miami in August. He asks Nicole if they're dueling in this poem. Is a poetry duel even a thing? The Betsy Hotel with the live music, the Prosecco chilling by the table, and the Labradors Betsy and Rosa walking the lobby is an excellent location for a non-challenge challenge. Dustin wants Nicole to know he loves the comic print on her jacket, her brutal honesty, and her poems. He's going to miss being able to meet her for a drink.
Nicole loves a challenge, but loves chilled Prosecco and the piano even more right now. She looks away from her laptop and refills her flute. It's always August in Miami. Nicole asks Dustin if he wants another grapefruit mimosa. The Betsy Hotel is the place to drink and write poems together. She wants Dustin to know that she loves his Dolly trucker hat, his quick wit, his poems, but she's not going to miss meeting him for a drink and writing together. Nicole books a flight to Asheville for November.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Please give Nicole a round of applause. So when you grow up a gay boy, pretty much anywhere, but definitely in a small town in North Georgia, you are the other. You feel the otherness, and so much of my work comes for that. And I think I'm watching my clock here. I'm going to slip in 2 final poems. So thank you so much tonight, and embracing the other, because the other is beautiful. It just takes a long damn time, I think, to figure that out. This is a villanelle. It's the Nancy and Ronnie show, and it begins with an epigraph. I spoke with Mrs. Reagan about the attached telegram. She did not feel this was something the White House should get into. Mark Weinberg, a Reagan staffer. In 1986, Nancy Reagan said, "Just say no," next to her husband on national television, a glimpse into the Nancy and Ronnie show. Her slogan's origin, if you didn't know, Nancy said it with motherly precision to a little girl in Oakland. Just say no. A spark. The movement began to grow. Thousands of chapters by 88. No division with the writers on the Nancy and Ronnie show. Mandatory minimum sentences, a blow to keep them in line, part of the racist vision. Nancy reminds, you better just say no. And Ronnie was purposely slow, addressing the AIDS crisis, abscission by the producers on the Nancy and Ronnie show. Dying, Rock Hudson wrote to Nancy for help, though they'd known each other for years. Her decision? She told her people, just say no. AIDS won't air on the Nancy and Ronnie show. And I'm going to end with a poem called Straight People Often Don't Get It. Christine Lennon spoke with a reporter outside Orlando Regional Medical Center. Her words mixed with tears, hoping her son Drew was alive I sobbed for Christine, Drew, all those murdered at Pultz. My mother would be in tears too, even if she wouldn't want the world to know. Mid-sob, my phone rang. I need some advice, a friend says, before I utter a hello. Why are you crying? She asks. Have you seen the news? Pultz, I respond. There's a pause that still lingers. Yeah, she answers, but it isn't like you knew anyone there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dustin. That was beautiful. Yeah, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Now our next amazing reader. I had the joy of reading with her in April, and woo! My sister's fierce, fierce. So it gives me great joy to bring you Arsamer McCoy, an interdisciplinary artist who merges poetry, archive, performance, and audio-visual sculpture into a conduit for advocacy. She's been published in Venice Magazine, Rootwork Journal, and books 2 and 3 of the Miami trilogy published by O Miami. Film writing credits include the art films How To, Oh, Look at Me, directed by visual artist and sculptor Giovanna Gonzalez, and You Can Always Come Home, directed by Emmy Award winner Juan C. Matos. In May, Arsamer completed and debuted her poetry-driven stage play, I'm So Depressed, for Miami Light Project's Here and Now Artist Group show. McCoy is entering her 6th year as a teaching artist with the O Miami Sunroom program, and she resides in Carol City. Let's give a warm welcome to my sister and friend, Arsamer McCoy.
I am asphalt and fire ants. I am sweet blood for mosquitoes. I am the daughter of tobacco fields. I am the grandchild of mustard greens, muscadines fermented and turned into moonshine. I come from down south and up north. You can find me latched to a gate trailing a vine of dewberries ripening for deep pies. I know the aroma of outside on black feet, cutting through tall grass in Lauderdale, back when all that used to be wood seed. That's an ancient Negro proverb. I got mango juice stains on my collar from summers in Old Orange Grove. I am just like my mother, coming and going. A soft song stays stuck in my throat like hymns floating over wooden pews in a collective utterance. I'm in the crux of my mother's elbow. Forehead between armpit and chest, itchy rayon floral printed dress socks sleeping to the murmuring of ceiling fans. I know tea green Japanese silk with the faux feather lining, cascading across my grandmama's orange shag rug in Carol City. And I am the survivor of hurricanes, of cocaine, of Yahweh ben Yahweh, of voter fraud, redlining, yellow caution tape, floodlines. I desire to be a cash king in the corner store. Find me making a bounty of $5. And here is where the block banter occurs, where the men can always find work but can't stay off the curb. After a bottle of wild Irish rose, expect the dialogue to turn into verbs and slurs. See, conversations, they continue on into the dark, where the street lights beam down on like stars on parked cars. I am chaos in Liberty City. Watching from across 54th Street as Norton Tire burns, I am juking in a post-apocalyptic movie on top of broken glass in front of Adam's grocery store, brown little baby of the city. I know that nothing here was made for me, but nothing would stand if I shrugged, so call me Atlas. I want air that don't taste like gas. I want you to see me as God intended. I want to be vulnerable and not regret the fallout. I want the ancient cities from Richmond Heights to Pleasant preserved in gold. I want your apology to be just as loud as your disrespect. I want the cranes shrouding the skylines to disintegrate into salt so the kids can skate on 65th Street again. I am soft sun behind lavender and cerulean skies. I am the Gandhi dancer, on my way home from the Grove and taking a break to sip my limeade and bite my Johnny cake with sweat creating pools in the small of my back, shading my eyes, always looking for home. Good evening, everyone. I am so honored to be here. I echo all the beautiful gratitude that Dustin said earlier. I echo every single word. And also give my condolences to Maureen, who I met too as a baby poet. and performed a piece that I will never perform again, but she was the only person who told me that was all right. Even though I thought it was trash. But I appreciate her spirit and her energy and the legacy that she has clearly left behind for so many people. And that poem right there is the difference between Miami and Florida in my eyes. I love to write about the amazing stories that we don't often hear and give reverence to. Those one-off stories that you talk about in the living room. By the way, if you, thank you. Just by the way, I'm in a whole restaurant / store / convenience grocery store in New York. So please forgive me. Clearly he don't care nothing about me or my life. So I talk about those stories, the stories that you share in the living room, that just mean so much, that just, you know, you keep with you forever. And one of the stories that my parents love to share every year is the story of when the Brinks truck crashed in Overtown. And so this piece is called 1997, Santa Claus Goes Straight to the Ghetto. And I love that the music right now feels kind of jolly like Christmas. So I'm gonna play with that. In poor Miami neighborhood, Brinks crash loses shower of cash. Washington Post, January 9th, 1997. Where were you when the bank truck flipped? When second Christmas came to the ghettos? When all of Miami showed a united front under a cool sun at 7 a.m. in the morning? It must have sounded like an explosion. There was dread first. A sound like that couldn't be good. People in this city always rushing, even in standstill traffic. Crash, boom. Oh, shit. People popped their heads from their cars. Children threw out their notepads to fill up their book bags. Everyone looked to the sky to see a pinata-shaped Brinks truck bust open like a sardine can. Slim, dingy, green-colored slips avalanche over I-95. $3.7 million dreams flooded Overtown skies. Pennies from heaven showered down. The people stuffed their shirts and strollers, pulled the floating marbles into their cars, wads of cash spilling out of jackets, folks utilizing whatever containers they could find, and nobody died. Though I'm sure some small scuffles over new appliances, rent bills, debts, and food were the fuel in that moment to some heated arguments, but why argue? When a $300,000 sack is bouncing down the interstate, the paper calls it a mob. Looked to me like a dance, the juk of the forgotten, a stab, stab, stab in your answered prayers. 1997 would be the year of the unexplainable, the year we all made amends with God and our mothers. It would be the year Black people in this city believed in miracles again. I'd like to give reverence to the amazing Nadege Green, who asked me to write for a book that Miami, that she published through Miami, about gun violence in this city. And when Nadege called on me to write for it, there was a myriad of, you know, different stories that I thought of that pertain to gun violence, but the one that sticked out the most was a family member of mine, my little cousin, Deja, actually killed herself. She found the gun in the house and shot herself. And I remember going to the funeral and everyone being dressed in the same color. And I remember just feeling like there should be more weight and gravity to what's happening right now. And just the nuances of death and the nuances of child death. We move on, you know, we try our best to remember and give reverence when we can, but just in that moment and being in that space and in that time, I remember feeling so like this is so heavy and too heavy to even have a funeral for. So I finally dealt with that through Nadeja's call, and what came from that was Still Got the Ringing in My Ears, and it would be the first poem to open up the book. And so I would like to share that piece now. The romance is in the aftermath. A collage of photos heat pressed on white shirts. Black hands collapsed into one another, linked around and under a green tent. Shoes sinking into a blanket of artificial grass. A baby cries during the prayer, breaking the thin layer between decorum and hysteria. Mama collapses in her sister's arms. The little ones look to the elders for reassurance they won't be next. No one would ever lie to a Black child like that. This ain't like Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or equal opportunity. This ain't bubblegum trees growing out your head. This is death. This is a dance we do every time we walk outside, a sidestep with what if and maybe right now. One shot rang out, one shot rang out, one shot rang out. I imagine it was the shine of the handle, the way it looked playful and heavy at the same time. Or it may have been how it was discussed but never seen, but there it was, unboxed and unattended. Like the many gadgets that decorated her little room, one shot rang out. 4-year-old Sade looked down the barrel to see if there was a jack-in-the-box inside. One shot rang out. One shot got her little finger caught in the trigger, used her chin and chest to pull it out. One shot rang out. One shot. Sorry. Her Disney World t-shirt was the top she had on. It stopped up the blood around her neck, which gave little to the floor and more to her father's arms. He got to her first, pushed her mother out the door and locked it. Her screams are still stuck in the walls. Nobody slept in that house until the funeral, because when they did, nightmares of a curious baby sneaking away from the kitchen to go play alone entered into their heads. Best to create a romance. Cliche conversations about the Lord's will. And about being still, but not about how a gun gives you the license to kill, even if you're for and it's yourself. Gun violence is a very serious issue in our city, in our world. The nuances are vast, and we need to have open and transparent discussions about those things. This last piece that I would like to do is entitled The Ghost Dance. And I wrote this piece while in residence in the Everglades. I had the honor of being the artist in residence in the Everglades last year in February. And I now work for artists in residence in the Everglades as the residency coordinator. And during my time there, I thought a lot about land and legacy and our connection to land. I thought about the fact that I am named after my mother and my great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, and my daughter is named after all of them, all of us. I thought about how much weight that holds for her and myself, how much weight it held for my mother, and so on and so forth. And so what spawned from that was almost this apocalyptic conversation about how we continue to survive through generations, through legacy, through love, through resilience. And so the Ghost Dance spawned from that. Aside from that, I also was doing a lot of research on the Maroons and indigenous communities in the Everglades. And so, yeah, the Ghost Dance. And when people ask me about climate change, I say, gather your grit. Remember your training. Stand steady on the balls of your feet and then wait. We have rivaled with these interlopers for centuries. It comes to an end now. We've agreed to meet at the water's edge, bring the women in to perform the ritual, rub bergamot on the daughter's temples, ground geraniums into the son's hands, hush the legs and arms down with lemongrass, place lavender flowers and eucalyptus into the hair, push nickels into the navels of the children. Since the death of our sweet king, the elders say we lost our audacity and replaced it with reasoning. Said we've been wandering aimlessly, forgetting our training. They took our babies and hung them from trees for trophies. Drugged our girls and left them sputtering to ghosts in the streets. Split open our veins and let them leak just to see how we bleed. And they saw magic. stardust and unknown planets, enchantment. Since then, they have been seeking to end us. Our survival means their demise. Now is the time. When your mother took you out to look at the stars and told you to follow the gourd, when the pipes froze in the walls and your uncle wrapped you in sheepskin, rubbed your dried hands with petroleum and told you how he survived the dust bowl, the black smoke, like his grandpap survived the shit bow. Okay, sir, that's super embarrassing. I'm sorry, y'all. I have to go, but I appreciate y'all so much for staying tuned, and thank you for this opportunity, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Arsemer. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. That's the life of the poet. In you gotta go. Thank you. That was beautiful, Arsemer. Now on to our next reader, the incomparable Melissa Gomez. And I have to mention today is El Día de la Caridad del Cobre, September 8th. And Melissa and I happened to speak about La Caridad del Cobre when we met at the Betsy. So, you know, poetry is a little bit of magic. And I never even thought about that when we put this day together. So if you're here, it's because you're a poetry lover. And if you're a poetry lover, you understand about the magic. So Melissa Gomez is part of making that magic every day. She is an integral part of O Miami, and I'm going to read her bio now, but I have to say that she really, really does so much for the literary scene in Miami, and we're all so grateful to her. And if you're here, you know who she is. So thank you, Melissa. Melissa Gomez is a narrative specialist who leads O Miami's year-round storytelling and bridges connection between the design, social media, and the public relations team. She has a background in coordinating and producing specialty film programs such as Popcorn Frights Film Festival, Film Junkies, and the Third Horizon Film Festival, where she also served as a technical director. A lifelong native of Miami, Melissa holds a Bachelor of Science degree in film production from Miami-Dade College with a focus on directing and editing. Now, with no further ado, Melissa, it's all yours.
Oh, that was really, really sweet. You almost made me cry back here. So that's definitely a way to to start. We will miss Arsemer. I loved hearing her read, and I loved hearing Dustin read. But I really want to share my gratitude for you, Caridad, Nicole, everyone at the Betsy, South Beach, Deborah, and Jean for putting this together and sharing this opportunity with me. I work at O Miami, and I actually don't get a lot of time to write poetry. So this was a nice retreat to kind of tap into this storytelling that I've been wanting to do for a really long time and just haven't had the time and space for. I feel really lucky to share this space also with Arsemer, who not a lot of people know this. I've known Arsemer probably for a decade at this point. So it was really fun to hear her read and be a part of a reading with a dear friend, and all of the rest of my friends, and Dustin and Judy and Tyler, who I love, and already I'm blown away by your words. As Caridad mentioned, my name is Melissa Gomez and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a writer, filmmaker, and storyteller. I'm a proud Miami native and proud to say I've never left. I know that makes me a little bit of a unicorn in this space and a lot of Miami spaces. And I thought about that. I thought about living in a city that is very transient, and a lot of my time during this festival was spent crafting a story that I'll be building for a while. So more of a book YA exploratory future project, but just to give you a little sneak peek, I don't want to leave you with nothing. It highlights a young girl who loves basketball, but also has a supernatural, and I mean, Caridad, you spoke about magic. What supernatural gifts this girl has living in a science fiction version of Miami. So very much of my time at the Betsy for the few days, I was world building and questioning, what a city looks like in that genre. Are there portals that lead you to the tallest construction crane? What things and what people escape from water in this imaginary Miami? What friends does this young girl have to fight the greater evils that exist? What's Miami's version of a Batmobile? All those things were things I thought about. And but for now, in this reading, because we're reading and writing poetry, I thought I'd let you into my real world and share some sport-themed Miami poems, all about being a kid too, and how strange that can all be, just to be a kid. I thought a lot about growing up as a kid with a single mother, and a lot of the people who raised me were very close family. But my mother's brother, my uncle, stepped in to really raise me, and he had zero experience raising women. So the way that we bonded was through sports, and kind of that informed a lot of how this other sci-fi story will happen in the future. But we loved the Miami Dolphins. We would watch every Sunday, and that's what we would do together and spend time as a family. If you're from Miami, like me, you have a complicated relationship with the Miami Dolphins. But in the 80s and 90s, I think we can all agree on one thing. I mean, now it's a little different, but so this poem is called "I'm 7 years old and Dan Marino cards are worth their weight in gold. I seek as many as I can find. Special edition, Topps Mint, 1986 score, fake autographed. 1991, maybe autographed. 1990, quite possibly legitimately autographed. Monikers like Dan the Hero, Legend in the Making, Milestone Marino. I wish to be introduced like this, like someone to pay attention to, like someone who could save the day in the fourth quarter. My play cards would be holographic, aqua, orange, white, and read, Mel the Mighty, Mel the Rookie to watch, can't miss Melissa. He played the field to me like a Greek heroine, Hail Marys that went on forever into the clouds, then struck down to the 5-yard line right before the clock struck end of quarter. At 7, turning towards 8 years old, I started to wish to be the ball, where if I threw myself into the air, I'd eventually fall into the right hands. Thanks. I love being in the webinar mode because you have a little cheering section. I think it's a lot of fun. So a lot of my youth, I was really, like I said, into sports. And there was a movie that I really love called Love and Basketball. If anyone's seen it, respect for Love and Basketball. It's a great film that I think a lot of people forget about. But it's special to me at that really young age because not only there's basketball, that's the obvious draw, there's a romance, but it's also the only film where I saw a really direct parallel to a mother-daughter relationship that felt similar, that I've never seen in other movies. So I'd watch and kind of share, oh, these are conversations I've had with my mother. So this next poem is called, I'm 8 years old and basketball is a sin. In the Bible, there's no verse that says girls can't play basketball. Trust me, I've checked many, many times. But here's what I did find. There's a line in Proverbs for runners. Proverbs 4:12. When you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. As well as Galatians, you are running a good race. Who cut in on you to keep you from obeying the truth? But absolutely zero, nothing, zilch, about my desire to dance on a court with 11 other girls, to leap up to the abyss and fall, eyes still towards the sky, to play to win, to hear the squeaks my Jordans would make, no doubt, on the court, to wear a jersey like a cape, to win as a girl. I'm 8 years old, my mother has other plans. According to the book of My Mother, 913, girls shouldn't play basketball. Who is the one that has convinced you otherwise? What does dribbling a ball and running and sweating and enduring and struggling like that have to do with being a girl? In the book of Melissa, it says, Melissa 9:14, I don't know how else to be. I will continue running this good race. Thanks, everybody. Oh, I love the basketball emojis. This will be my last poem, and I have something special planned after, but this poem is obviously, you've seen the thread about being 9 years old. And I've looked the same my whole life, so imagine this just at 9. So when you're a masculine girl and you're raised in Miami, you start to stand out, and there's things you're called to your face. There's things that are called behind your face and behind your back, and I've heard it all and seen it all, but there was always one, weirdly enough, there was one word that I never loved. So this poem is called I'm 9 years old and my name is Armor. At some point, if someone uttered the word tough, I would probably turn around. She's really tough. She's a tough one. She's a tough cookie. I didn't like this last one. She's a tough cookie, referring to me as something to bite into. At 9, 10, 11, and on, I prefer the word armor, something to shield me in battle, a blanket to keep me warm, a sign to others fighting the same fight. I know what you're all thinking. 9-year-olds don't face war horses in a field, but it is a tiny war to walk into spaces like I do, to look like I do, to love a woman like I do. You're also expected to endure more, take more, be more, never break as in rest, but as in breaking. I was recently bitten by a cat, true story. What did everybody ask? They asked if I gained supernatural powers and not if I ripped my skin apart. Thank you, everybody. So that was my last poem. I'm really thankful to having this poetry community with my work at Miami, but being an artist in Miami where I can share these words with y'all. And I always love hearing what writers are reading. So I thought I'd share 3 poets that I love on top of the people that are featured tonight that I really want to just mention as who I've loved since I've started writing. So Don Lundy Martin's Life in a Box is a Pretty Life. It's a book about being tough in many different ways, and they're an incredible writer that I've always held tight. This was the first poetry book that broke my brain in a good way. So I suggest picking this up. If you don't know who Stacey Ann Chin is, you do now. And she's incredible, tour de force in so many ways. She's a playwright, a poet, a writer. In 2020, when Miami hosted our Zoom festival, when the pandemic started, she still agreed to do a Zoom reading with us. And I kid you not, it's the most electrifying reading I've ever been to, and it was on Zoom. When I ended the Zoom, I got up and took a shot of whiskey to calm me down. I'm 100% honest. But the book is called Crossfire by Stacey Ann Chin. And I'm so happy, and obviously this is hard to talk about, but that people are mentioning Maureen tonight. So the last book I wanted to mention was her memoir. Obviously, if you Google Maureen, you will see a tiny mountain of books that she's written with collaborators here tonight, but it's also so many other people. But I love her memoir. My partner loaned me this, and I've held on to it for too long. I'm one of those people. So if you don't know Maureen and you didn't have the chance to get to know her like some of us did, read her memoir. It's a great way to get to know her, and then buy all of her poetry books. But I wanted to end on Maureen because I think we're all thinking about her and still mourning her. She was a giant in many ways. On that note, I really want to thank Caridad, Nicole, and everyone here tonight. I'm going to pass the mic back on to the host, and thank you all for letting me share my work with you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was fantastic to hear you read poetry for a change. That was awesome. I loved it. Loved it. Thank you so much. This is such a lovely, lovely opportunity for me to just sit back and get to listen to these amazing people. So if I'm fangirling a little bit, bear with me because I am a fan right now. Well, always actually. And that's a perfect segue to our next reader, Judy Ireland, another incredible icon in the poetry community. She is responsible for keeping poetry on all the time. Through the pandemic, she was one of the people that kept me grounded with poetry readings and other faces and connections. So thank you, Judy. And I'm going to introduce you with great pride and pleasure. Judy Ireland is the author of Cement Shoes, a poetry collection that won the Sinclair Poetry Prize. Her poems have appeared in Hotel America, Calyx, Saranac Review, Eclipse, Cold Mountain, Co-Review, and other journals, as well as in 2 anthologies, the Best Indie Lit New England Anthology and Voices from the Fierce and Tangible World. She is senior poetry editor and reading series producer for the South Florida Poetry Journal, co-director of Performance Poets of the Palm Beaches, and she teaches at Palm Beach State College. Help me welcome Judy Ireland. It's all yours, Judy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. I want to thank Escribe Aquí and everybody involved with it, Caridad and Nicole. I want to thank the Betsy Hotel, Deborah Briggs, and Jean Font. Everyone who's been a part of this. It's just been a wonderful opportunity to hear those who had fellowships there and to have that time to write, which is so very important. Caridad had asked me to think about otherness and ways that I might at some point be othered or feel as an other in the world. And so there's just so many, we are all othered in multiple ways, and there's so many places that you can take that. So as I was choosing poems, I was thinking about all the ways that I feel like an other or a bit of an outsider. And I thought that the idea of social class is one that seems like anathema to our society because we don't want to think we have social class. But as Bell Hooks said, class matters. And that's the one category that kind of goes across all other groups of people who might be othered in some way. And we're disproportionately represented in that strata. And so I chose quite a few poems tonight that have to do with that, but also some having to do with being a woman, which is also an instance of othering, and an elder is another way. So the first poem was published as one of the daily poems by Swim, and I appreciate their having put this poem out there, and I'll read it to you tonight. Where I come from, people bathe babies in the kitchen sink, sleep 3 kids to a bed, switch beds with anyone who works a different shift, cut seatbelts out of cars because the dinging won't stop, drive rods through plugged up catalytic converters that cost too much to fix, borrow chains from backyard swing sets to fling over big tree branches and hoist motors into the air, know not only how to pull an entire motor, but how to put another one in, remove their car batteries during below zero weather, take them indoors for the night so the ignition will turn over in the morning, go to welding school, make multiple pairs of brass knuckles just for practice, drive their cars despite suspended licenses so they won't lose their jobs, get kicked out of convenience stores for not wearing shoes, die from years of breathing polyurethane and gasoline and engine exhaust, die from drinking, die from old age while they're still young, give you their last can of beer, drop you off somewhere on their way to see their probation officer, even if it makes them late, turn off all the lights after supper, except the one in the hallway to save on the electric bill, sit on the couch, watch TV in the dark, wait for someone to get home from a night shift, wait for a child to go to sleep, for something to happen that's probably never going to happen anyway. Thank you. This next poem is one from childhood. It's called Surprise Visit by My Older Brother's Probation Officer. Mr. Struck brought 2 police officers with him, took us little kids into a bedroom and shut the door, left our mother in the living room fuming. He asked if we'd seen any guns around the house, trying to sound like he was asking about a missing book or misplaced car keys. We knew it was a trick question. No guns laid across the rafters in the basement, which is where I would have hidden them. No guns under beds. No guns behind boxes of canning jars. When Mr. Struck let us out of the bedroom, my mother could see he was disappointed. We were wide-eyed and silent. She locked the door after he left. Guns in the rafters would have been my first choice, or behind the water heater where the biggest spiders lived. I still remember the creak of the officers' leather holsters. For several nights, I woke from sleep to hear the sound of heavy boots on the stairs. Thank you. My father, most of my family and most everybody in our neighborhood, the parents worked at the factories. But my father left the factory at one point and went to work at a very large bowling alley. And so even though I didn't bowl, I did spend a lot of time at the bowling alley. And there was a shift in what happened there when my father, a new owner, bought the bowling alley and thought things a little differently. When the new bowling alley owner arrived, he made my father change into a workman's uniform. 25 years of wearing the same Brunswick polos and pants the other staff wore who worked the front desk. Unspoken, know your place nevertheless. Behind the machines, no going above his station, fixing everything in the whole place, knowing his job and everyone else's. A navy blue uniform with an embroidered name patch that shone like a beacon at the lunch table where everyone seated owed their everything to the machines he fixed. Thank you. This next one is about my family only ever took one vacation when we tried to appear like ordinary people on families on TV and take a big vacation, but we had to do it our own way. And I was 14 at the time and not real fond of the world, as most 14-year-olds are not. And we went in a big station wagon with no air conditioning, 6 people, and it was 1971, and we went to Mount Rushmore. So this is the Ireland family visits Mount Rushmore, 1971. I was probably wearing my Apple Records t-shirt I tie-dyed in RIT in a giant pot on the stove, twisted into knots wrapped in rubber bands. That year, my sisters and I tie-dyed everything we could get our hands on, the 3 of us staring into the steam like young witches waiting for the colors to deepen. The family station wagon powered up the Black Hills, overloaded with passengers, a cooler of food, mismatched suitcases. We arrived at dusk in unair-conditioned glory, impatient. I had just read Dick Gregory's No More Lies. History was junk, their version, their story, strategic omissions, lies. Now imagine dusk, hot South Dakota air, the long climb, the 4 faces dark. Loudspeakers scratch out a wordless version of the Star-Spangled Banner. Then the spotlights hit the craven side of the hill. The 4 faces appear, staring off into the night sky unaware. Imagine me, 14, standing silent in my tie-dyed t-shirt next to my sisters. I am clearly over it. There are no photos from that trip because the cameras we bought at the gas station didn't work. It was the only family vacation we ever took. And I'm going to wrap up. I had to do my homage to women. And this is a poem that I finished not long ago about my sisters and I, and thinking about the last generation gave up their names and took their husbands' names. And after that generation in our family, we all kept our own names after that. So there was a big division in time. And I actually thought of this because I went to the cemetery and started looking at the names and realized that genealogy is going to have a little bit easier time from now on because many people keep their names. So the poem is called Maiden Names. My mother and my grandmothers before her shook the letters of their fathers' names from their skirts, marched off into wedded lives without imprint, entered a kind of witness protection program, freed from past deeds and dark associations. They walked away carrying less of their lives with them, ready for new syllables, the mystery of who they would be, now welded to their half-familiar self and its better half. My sisters and I hung on to our names like the ends of thick ropes in a to-the-death tug-of-war, vowing to remain the same despite pairings and departures and all that was unleashed in between. We kept our full names deep in our pockets as they had been written in the wood grain of our dining room table, etched into each pot in that childhood kitchen. We never let them out of our sight. Our mothers and grandmothers knew the way a name flown feels at first like freedom, until the erasure you fully embrace pulls away entire strands of your hair. You look at the O of your arms and everything's strange. Half of your name left behind, with the part of your own mother you never even held. My sisters and I keep our family line, wrap it like a belt, wear it like a choker, our flesh indented like a finger that's worn a ring forever. Thank you. Thank you again.
Well, thank you, Judy. That was wonderful. And I can see that tie-dye shirt. Totally. Last but not least is, I have to say that another serendipity. So Tyler, I read Tyler's application, and the name sounded familiar, and I was like, I know this name. And it turns out that he had published me a couple of years before in Vero Press, and we didn't know that. And that's also something that was so important to me here, that connectivity that came from this project, the way that we got to know each other in ways we knew and ways we didn't know, and then the little hidden surprises that came up when we sat face to face, and that was part of the magic too. The writers are really insular people. Sometimes we write alone, we have our idiosyncrasies, and when we sit with each other, worlds open and we crack open. And that happened to me with Tyler. So thank you, Tyler, for that, and thank you for being here tonight. Tyler Gillespie is an award-winning educator and writer whose work has appeared in the New Yorker, Rolling Stone, GQ, The Guardian, The Washington Post, Playboy, and elsewhere. He doesn't play. He does not play. He's the author of the nonfiction collection, The Thing About Florida, Exploring a Misunderstood State, University Press of Florida, and 2 poetry collections, Florida Man Poems, Red Flag Poetry 2018, and The Nature Machine, Autofocus 2023. He's a 5th-generation Floridian who teaches writing at Ringling College of Art and Design. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you so much. I'm going to be honest, I'm having a really tender moment right now, like pretty raw. Usually at the readings, I don't like to read sad poems and but I'm just thinking about the connection, and I have some scattered thoughts right now. So I want to make sure that I really thank the Betsy Hotel and Deborah and Caridad and all of the folks who made it possible. This is my first residency. I come from a working class background, when it's it feels inaccessible in a lot of ways. And I also want to thank the server at the restaurant who talked to me about architecture and told me to go to the Versace Museum and the Art Deco museum down the street. Sorry. So actually, so Borough Press is releasing a new edition of my book, Florida Man Poems, that came out in 2018. It's been out of print. And so I've been revising the material, and I have about 20 new poems in a chapbook that's going to be included called Heat Advisory. But one of the poems is about Drew Leinonen, who Dustin mentioned earlier. So I went to UCF, and Drew is one of my best friends. And so I had never heard him read that poem. So I'm just thinking a lot about that. So let me just, I'm going to read that poem, and I wasn't expecting to do that. And I also want to say, it's interesting to go to Miami and write about grief, which is not something that I was planning on doing. My grandmother recently passed, and my great-grandfather only made it to 3rd grade. Then he worked on the farm. My grandfather dropped out of 8th grade, and my dad dropped out in high school, and I just finished my PhD because my grandmother read to me at night, and it's I wouldn't be there without her. And she passed before I could defend, which I defended in the summer. And then so after my defense is when I went to the Betsy the next month, and I really got back into poetry. So I just wanted to thank everybody, and I'm just going to read the poems because that I can do. And I am going to share my screen if people want to read them. Oh, okay, so I'm also working on a collection. It's called Grammar for a More Perfect Future, and it's about grammar, control, power, climate change, and desire. It's sexy in some ways. But this poem is for Drew, and hopefully this works out the way that I want it to. If not, life happens. Okay, can we see this? Okay. On a dance floor in Florida for Drew Leinanen. On a dance floor in Florida, we wrap arms around chosen family. DJ plays Robin's Dancing on My Own, yell, "This is our song." Years before, we'd seen Robin live in a downtown Orlando club when she toured Body Talk. Thank gay God for that album. You always took pop so seriously. A Spice Girls scholar who introduced me to Eurovision. Some people call pop songs cheesy, but you understood them as a type of survival, like Tonight in Stilettos and Broken Bottles. Okay. Okay, I hope y'all are not seeing that other revision that I'm working on, Lordy. Okay, we're gonna stop sharing. Okay, so now I'm gonna read poems that I wrote at the Betsy. I wrote 4 poems at the Betsy, and I'm gonna read them in the order that I wrote them in. Come on, work with me. Okay, give me like 1 second.
Are you trying to share? Are you good?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Working?
Is it working? Okay, here we go. Got it. We're working it out. Zoom. All right. So something that was really awesome was being in the writer's room. There's so many books there. So I got to read a lot of poetry. And I read, one of the first books that I read was this book called Focal Point by Jenny Key. And this is, it kind of revises the title and a little bit of the structure that she works with. It's called Never Fall in Love with the Poet, after Jenny Key. Because you'll linger in silence of double space. After a period, you'll even question mark if your relationship is rhetorical. Of course, it started as a casual text, then clauses dizzied and tongue-kissed sentences. The poet surprised you with prompts for something epic. He's a romantic, but experimental. Let you play with punctuation and his diction in ways you'd never thought parenthetical. He also had a fetish for feet, and you liked the symmetry. Sometimes he fingered hard forms, and the only time he went soft was with his rhymes. The poet gave damn good linguistics, and you always got turned on by his wit. Man, you fell so hard for his lines, promised you the moon, but soon broke meter for the muse. Now he scrambles your words like eggs, sunny side up to save face. See, there's a comma misconception about the poet. He's not so great at communicating his feelings when it's necessary, quickly comes up with his own rules and grammar, whatever pattern fits his scheme. He'll em dash at revision, never give you the noun you want. Okay. So then this next poem, it's called I'm in Miami Beach. At a hotel, I pour milk into iced coffee and watch galaxies spiral in glass, then wish I could go back in time to film it for socials. Because everything is content in this new landscape. I'm by myself on South Beach, can see famous sand as I eat Cuban molletas outside with smokers. The only other people who take bites of this heat. A fitness model runs by us, and death follows on rollerblades. How much life do you spend thinking about mortality? I'm sure it's a lot. You're a poet. The smokers near me sip juice and give pocket change to someone who asks. Death shoots me a thumbs up. The night before, we'd been flirting on a dance floor. It's awkward, but I still wave back. Sunshine makes me somewhat forgiving of a fuckboy in dark robes that don't get caught in his skates. I mean, I think life is all about getting your heart broken as often as you can and tasting as much new fruit as possible. Death stops trailing the model and makes his way towards the smokers and me. Anyway, it's like I'm here by myself. It would have been hard to pour the milk and get the shot. Okay. Thank you. This is a poem that I would probably not read at a reading, but I wrote it at the Betsy. And it was like, oh, I'm writing about grief now. Okay, here we go. Okay. This poem, it's called, My Grandmother Always Told Me Money is Just Money. And it's about the small things. The joy inside you is accessible at any time. It may be covered in dirt and doubt and other shit, but it's there. I know it's fucking hard. I'm grieving too. And I don't have the language to articulate the feeling of you've always been there, and now you're not. Don't know how to name this sapling. The poet abstracts the ashes into kaleidoscopic. Saussure says, you'll think about different birds than me, but I don't give a damn what he says. I don't want to discuss linguistics. Can't waste more time on theory. There won't be a tomorrow for someone today. There won't be another chance to say, I believe. You can joy at any time. It's there. It's gotta be. My grandmother would want you to buy the best piece of chocolate and take as many bites as you can. Savor them. I'm talking nibble that motherfucker until the chocolate is imprinted on your tongue, until you can recall that moment when you're sad on a beach. I'm trying to write this dirty thing a bird, and I know that's another abstraction. Sometimes it's just so hard to say the thing. Plain chocolate was my grandmother's favorite, and I hope when the time comes, you can describe the taste. Okay. And then this poem is about the last one that I wrote. I'm just gonna, and it's a sonnet because I love sonnets. A man asked me why I still write poetry when it doesn't pay my bills. As if the body doesn't sing electric. As if everything isn't connected. As if we can't delight in an afternoon. As if we'd never seen the moon. As if we only need to pay our bills. As if we shouldn't get some thrills. As if hope isn't a thing with feathers. As if the birds never sang. As if it's not fun to rhyme. As if I didn't eat the plums that time. As if you wait still for the wonder. As if that line wasn't on a pack of butter. Left at a table poetry brought me to. As if this poem didn't lead me to you. Okay. And then these final two poems are going to be in the new version of Florida Man poems, and it's the chapbook that I wrote. And so I'm revisiting it, and I'm, I write a lot about Florida, and people have asked me to write poems, like political poems recently for like the St. Pete Pride, like when Pride was getting canceled. And I don't really consider myself, like, that's not my vibe, but when your community asks you to write a poem for them, that's what you do. And so now then when I'm revisiting the text, here's some things that have been emerging. These are some of the last poems in the chapbook. And this poem is called The Sky is Gay. I Don't Make the Rules. Muse, oh muse, the thunder cracks and I know you're here in Florida, the lightning capital. Bolts blaze this day something fierce as heat expands the air around it and creates a shockwave. We hear boom. I learned this science from a cereal box. There's poetry everywhere. It heats our words until boom. I say, Shara, oh muse. This state of shells is shambles. I'm worried about alliteration and their patterns. Right now, I'm emotional about clouds. Can't get over the fact that they're constantly changing ice crystals of abstract art we can look at whenever we want. Don't tell me there's no God. Don't tell me aliens aren't real. Mars has clouds like ours, but Jupiter makes clouds ammonia. I learned this from NASA, based in Florida. They study crystals. After a storm passes, our sky, blue, pink, whites, the colors of a trans flag. And later the sun comes out as a double rainbow against the gray. I pause. Visual, say Shara. There's poetry in my home state sky, and we know clouds shift with the wind. But muse, oh muse, please remind us this as we do our best to syllable a new dawn. Okay. And then this final poem is the last poem in the chapbook. Because I want to end on a happier note, you know, here we go, for me. On a day I'm feeling especially bummed out about Florida. I'm fighting traffic on a bridge, frantically late to work when hawk flies overhead with silver lining, fished, clutched in its talons. The bird flaps sailboat winds as fish pulses final moments and horizon. My eyes follow this feat of nature across fluorescent morning, full of sherbet colors, orange cream and strawberry delight. Bird won't drop this tasty snack no matter how much the fish fights. They disappear over jeweled water, my favorite color when white sand reaches up from the ocean floor to touch sky. From the corner of my eye, a dolphin breaks surface film. And in this moment, I swear I see God. The traffic finally moves. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wow. I'm just so thrilled and filled, and I don't have the words right now. Everyone has just been amazing. I couldn't have envisioned a better representation of this festival and the work that you all did at the Betsy. You know, they love the writers at the Betsy. You mentioned a server who spoke to you about architecture and the staff, and you all left your mark there, and that is a testament also to what artists bring to the world. And I was joking earlier about sprinkles with Dustin, but you know, to use perhaps a tired cliche, you really do sprinkle a little magic wherever you go. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for escribiendo aquí, conmigo, con ustedes, for writing here. Thank you again to the Betsy, to Calabra Arte for putting on this beautiful, beautiful production. Look at the screen. It's just, I never could have done that. So I'm just so happy and thrilled and grateful. Thank you to our audience for being here, for your wonderful comments, and take a little bit of poetry with you everywhere you go. Your life will be enriched, and please come escribe aquí with me anytime. Join us again next week for Escribe Aquí Collage and Connect on Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's going to be generative and interactive and super cool. And also on the 14th, we will have part 2 of the Escribe Aquí fellow reading. And I will see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, Judy, Tyler, Dustin, Melissa, Nicole. Thank you so much. You guys were awesome. Awesome. Good night, everyone.